real-life secret agent Sue Ann Baker is one of the first ever Secret Service agents, and she is on the other end of our AT&T line right this very second. Welcome to the program, and congratulations.
Well, thank you, Michael, and it's a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, did you get to wear those sexy shades and everything, and have that thing in your ear and talk into your sleeve and all that stuff?
I absolutely did it all.
Man.
Yep.
How about it? The book is called Behind the Shades, A Female Secret Service Agent's True Story. Let me ask you if you ever got a chance to meet Gerald Ford or be around President Ford. And the reason I do that is, of course, he's our only president from Michigan. So if I get a chance, I like to ask.
Well, unfortunately, I did not. He came after I did because I was sworn in 1971. And I don't recall when he was president, but no, I have not had a chance to be around him.
Yeah, that must have been groundbreaking at the time for a woman to have a gig like that in 1971.
It absolutely was. I was one of the first 5 women that were sworn in. We were all sworn in together, and it was breaking the glass ceiling. I mean, the agency had been around for 106 years. They had never had female agents. So we were 5 women in a sea of like 1,150 men.
What do you make, speaking of the men, it must have been a heck of a boys' club, and we understand now there have been a number of incidents under the Obama administration where the Secret Service agents are acting kind of screwy. I mean, you never used to hear those stories in the past where they would drive a car through the gate or go and have hookers overseas and all that kind of. What do you make of the boys' club now?
Well, unfortunately, it's true. Since about 3 years ago when the prostitution things came up in Cartagena, there's been about 20 agents who have been caught misbehaving. And it's embarrassing. And it's embarrassing to all of the other agents that, serve the country. But I have to say that those 20 agents really make up a little less than 1% of the agency. So I would hope that the public realizes that people are human. I didn't see that kind of behavior in my day going on, and I don't know what causes it, but I think Director Clancy has his hand on it and will certainly get the agency straightened out in that respect.
Yeah, it is interesting when you can have some agents drunk and say, well, let's go drive over to the White House and nearly drive through the fence or whatever the heck happened in that driveway. And maybe even worse is that people could jump the fence and run right into the front door of the White House. Well,
yep, that's unfortunate. And actually, I think the Secret Service or the White House police were kind of caught between a rock and a hard place with fence jumpers because, if they shot the person and he was found to be mentally ill, there would be bad press. And if they didn't shoot him and he got too far, that would be bad press. So it's a really difficult job and a lot of judgment making in an instant.
Well, the smartest thing ever is to split the difference and make the fence higher. I thought that's about as sensible as putting a lock on the cockpit door of an airplane after the first time one's been hijacked to me.
Well, it's better than not making any changes at all, and the Secret Service is always willing to learn from their mistakes.
What was your closest call? Do you remember ever getting in between someone you were protecting and an evildoer?
Let me think about that. I worked the National Campaign Trail in 1972 with protecting both Shirley Chisholm, who was the first black woman to run for president, and then ultimately I was with Eleanor McGovern, who was the wife of George McGovern, the presidential candidate who was running against Richard Nixon. So there were often times that I was in crowd situations that there was a lot of pushing. I have one picture of me walking down in New York City, down, I think, Fifth Avenue in a crowd and having to just elbow my way to get between a reporter and Mrs. McGovern. Was that dangerous? I don't know, but it was certainly exhilarating at the time. I mean, there was a lot of pressure, and both it took mental and physical strength.
There have been some Secret Service agents who have written really astonishingly candid tell-all books, people who apparently had access to the Oval Office and even the residence. Does that make you a little bit uncomfortable that they're talking about LBJ sitting on the toilet and things like that in their books?
Well, I haven't read all of those books. I've read portions of several of them. It's not something that I would have discussed. I mean, I was in President Nixon's bathroom. I saw his suit hanging in the closet, and it just made me realize that he's human like everybody else and puts his pants on one leg at a time. So my memoir, Behind the Shades, is more a walk down a historical memory lane. Plus, I want to inspire young women and men to grab unexpected opportunities, even if they don't know where it's taking them, because clearly none of the first 5 of us had any idea what we were getting into, and yet we still grabbed those opportunities, and I think we made a difference.
You make a difference, and yet at the same time, you try not to be out in front. I mean, I suppose you want to be visible enough to be a deterrent, but at the same time, not a distraction to the person you're protecting?
Well, I don't think the agents can be a distraction to the person they're protecting.
Well, it's invasive, really, isn't it, sometimes?
Well, sure, and I'm sure people think that until they are around the agents and they realize that the agents do keep their secrets. I mean, you're privy to history being made, you're privy to private conversations, and so I think once people, the protectees, become aware of that and can trust the agents with their secrets, then I don't think there's a problem there.
Did Princess Caroline of Monaco treat you nicely? I understand you protected her.
I did, but she didn't know she was being protected. I was an undercover camp counselor. She was 14 years old, and they had sent me in to have some level of protection. Grace Kelly and her father, Prince Rainier, didn't want her to have protection. They wanted her to have an ordinary camping experience like any girl. Mm-hmm. So somebody made the decision that there should be some level of protection, and so they sent me in undercover. So I never really interacted with her much. I was just around her in case something happened.
Wow, interesting. And so how long of a term was that?
That was a 3-week camping experience where I had to be a camp counselor and have a tent full of girls and teach swimming and so forth. So
that's and so obviously nothing happened, and you were definitely in the background on that one.
That's correct. But, you know, somebody pointed out that they had never heard of someone being protected by an undercover agent. And I guess that's true, because I've never heard of it either.
And then to this day, then, her parents never knew, and she never knew.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah,
no. Now, she might be aware of it if she reads the book. And I've been invited back to that particular camp. It's Camp Oneka in the Pocono Mountains to speak to them next year, and they are going to invite her. And so I think that would be just a kick to be able to finally meet her and let her know that she was protected by the United States.
That's terrific. Well, we feel like we will meet you when we read your book, Behind the Shades, a female Secret Service agent's true story. It's Sue Ann Baker, who did lots of other things in her life, too. But obviously back in 1971, she was a pioneer in federal law enforcement.